What is up, YouTube? I'm Devon DaVinci, leader of the Renaissance Crew, and you're watching DaVinci Reacts. Today, we're going to be getting into a Michael Jackson related video because Michael Jackson's death anniversary had just passed. Again, for those of you that might not have seen any of my other Michael Jackson reactions, as I've said many times before, Michael Jackson is the person that made me who I am today, as far as being a skeptic, as far as the belief system that I have, my process of critique that leads me to make decisions is based on Michael Jackson because, like I said, I was somebody that assumed certain things about him during the trial when it was happening, but it wasn't until after the trial that I actually did research and looked into it, and it completely changed my mindset because I was so sure that he was guilty at first, but then the evidence just, the stuff just wasn't there, and I shocked myself because I was like, man, I believed all this stuff so wholeheartedly. And then when I did the research and then I asked myself, why did I believe it? It's like, man, the truth is I don't know. I just heard people say it and I just went with it because people were saying it so much and saying it all the time. So I just assumed that it was right. But yeah, since then, like I said, I've become a Michael Jackson fan. I've studied mainly the man more so than the music. Now, I am a fan of Michael Jackson's music, but I'm much more of a fan of the person himself. I say this too, if I had a chance to, or if I had a choice between going to a Michael Jackson concert or just hanging around with Michael Jackson, just to sit down and have a regular conversation, just to chill for a minute, I would rather choose the chill than the concert. But anyway, this is a video called Michael Jackson's Death Story. How did he really die? It was from a channel called How It Was. This is a channel that has other videos related to, I believe, historical events. I could be wrong, but I think they have another video on Elvis. They have a handful of videos that are related to information that came out about how people died. I know they have a video on Bruce Lee. And it pretty much just talks about the circumstances leading up to and during and following the person's death. I think they might have some other videos as well about events, I think, but I know they do deaths, and Michael Jackson was one of them. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this and see what it has to offer.
June 25th, 2009 marks the day when showbiz lost its reigning king, and the world lost one of the most famous people to have ever lived, Michael Jackson, the king of pop, rock, and soul. In 2009, he was just 50 years old, and so looking forward to his little kids.
Would it be safe to say, and I mean, you might be able to debate it or whatever, but for me, it seems like it's kind of like an objective fact. Was Michael Jackson the most famous person in the entire world at the time of his death? Because when you think about it, Michael Jackson at the time hadn't released an album in 8 years. The last thing that he really released was, or the last thing that he kind of worked on that he released, I think was not the Michael Jackson, but the Thriller 25 album. And it had some remixes and stuff like that on it, but it wasn't a full-on album. His music wasn't, well, his albums, they at the point they were old. They're not going to be the number one selling album for the week or for the month or for the year or whatever, because most people that wanted to get those albums already got those albums. But as far as just from a popular standpoint, from a celebrity and fame standpoint, Michael Jackson is probably the most famous person in the world when he died, which is interesting. It goes into he had a theory about fame and what tied to it, and something I definitely agree with him is the mystery involved. What separated Michael from a lot of other celebrities was the mystery. He kept himself kind of hidden and made you want to learn more about him. So you kind of, in a way, sought him out as opposed to him seeking you out. You knew Michael Jackson is this talented individual, you want to learn more about them, but then like there's only crumbs, so it's like you're just like looking for any type of information. And anytime he would just like show up to go shopping somewhere, you're like, oh, Michael Jackson's over there. Look at like, it drew you in because of the mystery. Whereas a lot of other celebrities are constantly out there and you don't really care too much because you know everything about them. Like I don't want to know, like I don't care to know why they're doing this because I already know it. Whereas with Michael, it's like, oh, why is he doing that? Why is he wearing the mask? What's up with the mask? Something's going on with the mask. He's wearing these outfits. Like, what's up with the outfits? Like, no, most people don't really wear that, so there must be a reason. We got to find out the reason. Michael Jackson isn't releasing a song this year. What's going on? We got to try to figure out if he's working on something. But like, it's the appeal, which kind of sucks as a reaction channel because it doesn't allow me to do that. But I mean, at some point, I'm going to get into something besides reactions, and hopefully, I can get started on some type of, ability to release stuff when I feel it should be released. One second. My computer's kind of acting funny, so it's probably going to take a second for it to start.
King of pop, rock, and soul. In 2009, he was just 50 years old, and so looking forward to his little kids Prince, Paris, and Blanket finally seeing their dad
surprisingly
live on
like
stage.
him for the animations.
At that time, Michael was working on a comeback series of shows called This Is It.
Why does he
It
keep
would have
doing
been
this?
a true sensation in showbiz.
Just a quick thing, I just wanted to bring this up. Paris Jackson has some of the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen on a human being. I just wanted to throw that out there. Like, ever since like I've seen her to this day, I just look at it like, damn, if I could choose, like if I had a daughter and I could choose like what her eyes looked like, I would pick Paris Jackson. She has the most beautiful eyes I think I've ever seen on a human being, ever. I know it's a weird thing to say, but I just felt like I had to say
The
it.
news of Michael Jackson's death came as a total shock to everyone. But what happened that day?
I didn't come off creepy.
If you look at Wikipedia now, you'll find out that the official cause of death was cardiac arrest induced by acute propofol and benzodiazepine intoxication. Drug addict? Well, things are not as straightforward as they may seem at first glance, and Wikipedia may be a little off. In this episode, we're going to explain what happened to Michael Jackson, but more importantly, why and if his life could have been saved. Looking at the lavish lifestyle of Michael Jackson, it's hard to believe that the greatest entertainer of all time spent most of his life in pain. Here's why. In 1984, while shooting a Pepsi commercial, Michael Jackson was literally on fire when a firework ignited his hair. That night, Michael not only experienced the second and third degree burns to his scalp and body, but he was also introduced to the world of pain medication and plastic surgery. In 1990,
a lot of people don't understand or don't realize like the process that Michael had to go through in order to help his scalp recover. From what I've understood, it was something called ballooning, where they would like take where they would pretty much like put a balloon in your that part of your body and like inflate it to try to get the skin to like stretch. And then they would like cut out the parts that were dead and then take the parts on the ends that are somewhat fresher and then like bring them together and stitch them back together again. Like Mike had pain in his head for a long time. There's actually there was a photo shoot that happened around 2007, 2008. And if I can find it, I'll probably put it inside the video. But there's a part where somebody's like messing with his hair, and he's sitting there. He has to get his hair like not messed with, but his hair fixed. And like the whole time you see like this agonizing look on his face, and it's just like it just looks like it's so painful. And so that lets you know that even to at that point in time, from an accident that happened almost 25 years earlier, he was still dealing with pain from that event.
Going good.
It's also introduced to the world of pain medication and plastic surgery. In 1999, right in the middle of the show, Michael Jackson plunged 50 feet to the ground during an aerial platform malfunction. The accident permanently damaged his spine.
Happened during the
After the show, MJ
Michael
collapsed
Jackson
and was
Friends
rushed to the
concerts.
hospital, where he was again put on some serious painkillers. Ever since then, back pain and pain medication have become essential to his life. Stress and pain would later transform into serious health problems for Michael Jackson. Perhaps his most disturbing one was insomnia. There were times when he didn't sleep for 3, 4, even 5 days in a row, and the only thing that could put him to sleep was painkillers and sedative drugs. By the end of the 90s, MJ had developed strong addiction to propofol, which essentially is a powerful sedative used by anesthesiologists to sedate patients during surgeries.
I was always under the impression that propofol and Demerol were the same thing. It is interesting, though. Michael Jackson has a song called Morphine, in which he talks specifically about Demerol and things like that. So, and it's funny when you go back and listen to it, because now it sounds more like a cry for help than it does just a regular song, because he's talking about like the drugs that would eventually end up leading to him dying. So, and also like when you go back to like 1993, he was in rehab for painkillers and things like that. So this is someone that's dealt with it for a long time, but it's something that wasn't really talked about, which is kind of my argument for the whole, like, the allegations they make against him. They always say like Michael Jackson did these things, and it's like, if Michael Jackson actually did something like that, it would have been covered up, or at least it would have been covered up a hell of a lot better than him just getting on TV and saying, "Oh, sure, I share my bed with kids." Like, he would have covered it up, kind of like how he covered up the painkillers, or how he covered up plastic surgery. Like, to this day, people are still speculating just how much plastic surgery Michael Jackson had. He has said certain things, but because there's no solid thing, people still to this day speculate it. So if Michael Jackson actually was trying to cover something up, we wouldn't have learned about. Normally with celebrities, things like those types of allegations, what happens is, for a long time, it's like an industry rumor. Like, you hear other famous people will say that they've heard this about this person or something like that. Michael Jackson, there was no rumors whatsoever about him and kids or anything like that until the first allegation came out. That pretty much shocked the entire world. There was no rumors of Michael Jackson doing anything inappropriate with kids at all up until that point. Based on what I've researched, I haven't seen any reports before 1993 of anyone speculating Michael Jackson did anything inappropriate to kids, ever. After 1993, that's when the first allegations came out, and that is when those rumors and everything started up. Like I said, normally with celebrities, it's an industry secret first, and the celebrity does their best to distance themselves from it. Usually if someone does come out and say something outright, then there's probably more to it. Like with Harvey Weinstein, it was a gigantic industry secret. Everybody that has worked with him or whatever else have talked about hearing rumors of that happening, or might have stories where they've either seen something or were told something directly or something like that. But Harvey Weinstein never himself came out and said anything related to those. It wasn't until the right accuser came out and the right situation was going on, and it allowed the momentum to build, and it led to more people coming out and this, that, and the other, and then that's when they finally got him. With Michael, it's like there was no industry secrets. The people that accused him, all of them had monetary aspirations, like every single one of them. And then you talk about the fact that no other, like, there was no waterfall of accusers that came out after the first accusers, like made their initial story. Normally, when something like that happens, if this person has a history of like doing stuff, a ton of other accusers would start coming out of the woodworks everywhere. With Michael Jackson, that wasn't the case. There's only been 5 accusers, to my knowledge, that have ever said anything against him. And every one of them have had stories that are very shady, and none of them led to more people coming through. In 1993, the prosecutors went around the world looking for people that would make accusations against Michael Jackson. Nobody came out, including 2 accusers that Wade Robson, James Safechuck. At that time, they said Michael didn't do anything. Then the trial happened. That didn't have a rainstorm of accusers coming out of the woodwork. In that story, Wade Robson, James Safechuck again said nothing ever happened. And then with Wade Robson and James Safechuck, when they changed their story after the statute of limitations ended, because Leaving Neverland, people thought that would lead to like a tsunami of accusers, but it didn't. Nobody came out. Nobody said anything. So again, it's like,
Powerful sedative used by anesthesiologists to sedate patients during surgeries. Michael Jackson was so used to sleeping under propofol that he even called it his milk, as the color of the substance indeed resembles milk. So, in early 2009, Michael signed a lucrative contract with media giant AEG to organize a series of concerts in London. This Is It tour, which should have marked the great return of the greatest entertainer. The plan was to have the first concert in July of 2009 and have the rehearsal started in late April at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. Because of the time trouble, the preparation for the show quickly became an exhausting and rigorous routine for Michael, who hadn't been performing at full-scale live shows for over 10 years.
Now, Michael, we're talking 2009. Michael Jackson back in 2001. Might be before that, but I'm gonna say 2001 to be on the safe side. In 2001, he said that he couldn't tour anymore. He said it would literally kill him if he toured because he goes all out in his tours. Like, he doesn't eat, he doesn't sleep, he doesn't nothing. He puts everything into his tours, and he said it would literally kill him if he had to tour again. He even referred to an incident that happened in 2005 with the HBO. There was a HBO concert that he was doing, but he collapsed during the making of that show, and he referred to that like that's what would happen. Like, I'd go all out. Like, if I were to do a concert like that at this point, I would be killing myself. Now take that, add 10 more years, and then tell Michael, oh, you're going to do 50 shows.
And suddenly he needed to dance, sing, keep up with the groove of the band, strategize with the production crew for hours and hours, 5 or 6 days a week.
Not to mention after the trial and everything. Not to mention after the trial and everything, that also added to his, not added, but took away from his health. So you have that point at the trial and 10 years, and then put him through 50 shows.
Michael needed a good sleep, and to get his back pain right out of his head, he needed more than that. His plan was to go through this tough period with the help of his good old friends, propofol and benzodiazepine. But administering serious sedatives like propofol is not as easy as taking pills. Therefore, Michael has always had a special companion by his side, a medical doctor who would be willing to assist Michael with this sensitive matter. As part of the deal with AEG, Michael had a request to hire a personal physician to support him during the tour. AEG said, sure, and hired Conrad Murray, a doctor who had known Michael long before the rehearsals, and who undoubtedly knew about MJ's non-trivial requirements. So, here's what's been happening almost every night after the rehearsals. From the Staples Center, Michael would go back to 100 North Carrollwood, his Los Angeles home, where Dr. Murray would be administering him propofol and other drugs. They even turned one of the bedrooms into a medication room.
If you look at the setup of that medication room, it's amazing that Michael Jackson was able to survive as long as he did, because that was the worst put together medication room or area where you would do surgical activities that anyone has ever seen. Like the fact that the dude had the IV drip on like a little dimmer switch pretty much, as opposed to a computer that actually calculated it and can adjust it based on how the person is responding. Like he had like a little dimmer switch. Like that was it. It looked like something that, like, if MacGyver became a damn surgeon and he had to perform surgery in a cave somewhere and he had to put together some makeshift IV drop, that's what he would do. Like that thing was put together with like shoestring and duct tape. Like, and I don't know why. I mean, first of all, it shouldn't have happened anyway. But if you were going to do it, I don't know why they didn't like invest in like computers and things like that to actually monitor the stuff. Not to mention a doctor that specializes in it. Like Conrad Murray didn't know shit about administering IVs and everything else. Like he wasn't that type of doctor. So it was just like, it was so negligent that they should have charged him with murder.
Every night, Dr. Murray was putting Michael into anesthesia at the comfort of his own home, without proper medical equipment, which was absolutely crucial for what they were up to.
If they had the right equipment, Michael would be alive today.
Actually,
I don't know how happy he would be, because, I mean, after the trial, like I said, I feel like the trial pretty much made him lose the will to live, like he didn't care anymore. But if he had a computer monitoring it, then once he shifted over, or once his body shifted over to that deep sedation state where his like body wasn't breathing anymore, it would have automatically adjusted it and would have brought him back. Whereas with this situation, his body went into that deep sedation state, but the propofol was still flowing at the exact same rate that it was already flowing in, because Conrad Murray had left the room and he wasn't there to change it when you start to notice that Michael isn't breathing anymore. So there's no telling how long Michael was like his body was completely unresponsive, like how long that drip was still going after he was already unresponsive. Yeah, if they had a computer there, it would have automatically just adjusted based on Michael's vital signs and knew, okay, something's not right. Let's go ahead and like change the amount.
Crucial for what they were up to. Now, what happened the night when Michael died? Actually, it was just another night. Nothing special. Dr. Murray induced a small dose of propofol into MJ's body and put him on a drip. Sounds confusing? In a nutshell, during a propofol anesthesia, an anesthesiologist initially administers a small dose to make a patient fall asleep. After that, the doctor needs to be able to maintain the concentration of the sedative in the patient's blood, otherwise the sleep won't last long. That's shortly after the initial dose Dr. Murray put Michael Jackson on a drip, when a small dose was being continuously delivered to the patient through intravenous equipment, thus keeping the stable concentration of the sedative in his blood. And here's what went wrong. See, the reason why a doctor must have proper equipment when administering drugs like propofol is that the reaction of a human body to strong sedatives can be unpredictable. Very unpredictable. Apparently, there's a mild sedation, moderate sedation, and deep sedation. While in mild or moderate sedation, a patient's breathing themselves. The brain basically controls the act of breathing. In deep sedation, though, the brain is no longer capable of controlling breath, and the patient needs to be put on ventilation to keep breathing.
Again, that's another thing they could have done if they had the proper medical things. In the event that Michael did slip into deep sedation, they would have had a machine there that would be able to breathe for him. But they, for some reason, didn't bother to invest in stuff like that.
Part is that there's a very narrow line between moderate and deep
He was getting
sedation.
paid $250,000
propofol is known to
a
be
month.
causing deep sedation quite easily. That night,
could have probably
Michael's
bought that
body
shit with your
reacted
own money.
unusually, and he transitioned into deep sedation without any trace, since there was no equipment monitoring his heart rate and pulse, which would have alerted Dr. Murray in time. And it was such a coincidence that Dr. Murray left the medication room for a few minutes right at the time when Michael Jackson basically stopped breathing.
From what I understand, Conrad Murray was actually gone close to like 40 minutes as opposed to a few minutes. Now, I could be wrong. I probably have to go look into it again, but I'm pretty sure he went to the bathroom to make a call. He made a series of calls, and those series of calls altogether took around 40 minutes.
In medical terms, he had a respiratory arrest. At this point, though, he could still have been saved. Since he stopped breathing, the only thing that he really needed was oxygen, but Dr. Murray wasn't ready to handle this situation. Upon his return, Dr. Murray did notice that something was wrong, but he thought it was cardiac arrest, not respiratory arrest. In other words, he thought that Michael was experiencing a heart-related issue. So he started performing CPR, which was absolutely counterproductive to what he should have done. He also did not call 911 immediately,
Pretty much like
and the
pushing what
qualified
little
help
air
was
he
not
did
in
have
time
in
to
him out.
save Jackson's life. Later on, Dr. Murray would suggest his own version of what happened that night, claiming that he only gave Michael the initial dose just to help him fall asleep, and then Michael would put himself on a drip while Murray was out to make a phone call.
How the hell can you put yourself on a drip if you're getting propofol injected into you consistently? That makes no sense. That's like saying that a person in a coma woke up halfway to give themselves a sponge bath. Like, that makes no damn sense. If Michael was able to get out of his propofol-induced coma pretty much, he would probably be too far out of it to even know where the hell he was, let alone know where the IV drip was and how to adjust it to get more propofol. And if you knew that Michael was like, if that was the case, and you knew Michael was someone that had the tendency to get up and adjust it himself, why weren't you there to make sure that Michael wouldn't wake up and adjust it? Because you're the doctor, Michael's not. You know that he wakes up and fucks with the dials. Maybe you shouldn't leave the dials in case Michael wakes up and starts messing with him. Now, I know it doesn't take any responsibility away from Michael. Like, he shouldn't have been doing this at all. But if you're going to be a doctor and you're going to accept that job, which again, you shouldn't, because as a doctor, you make a pledge to take care of patients, not put them in harm's way. If you are going to do that, you should probably at least try to take a little bit of that what is it called? I was about to say the Hippocratic Oath. I forgot the term of it, but take a little bit of that and try to make sure that if you're going to put them in this situation, have them in the absolute best position in that situation as possible so that the minimumest of damages could happen.
The court and jury didn't believe in that story. In our personal opinion, Michael Jackson's condition was known to his close circle of business partners, but no one really wanted to truly help him get off the drugs.
True.
At the end of the day, he could have been sent to rehab if someone cared enough for him.
Again, true.
But in the end, it looks like the Michael Jackson who's performing live despite operating on drugs was more profitable than the Michael Jackson who's in rehab fixing his addiction.
Yeah.
This is the story of Michael Jackson's death. This is how it was.
Yeah. See, that's the main thing about it. Michael Jackson had been showing signs of substance abuse, I guess. I don't want to call it substance abuse because that tends to have much more negative like connotations to him. But he's been showing signs of that since early 2000. Like, even when you see him on the red carpet before the 30th anniversary shows, when he's like walking down the carpet with Elizabeth Taylor, even then he looks completely out of it. That special is actually 2 different concerts, and they splice together, or the TV version splices together different moments during those 2 concerts, because some moments look a lot better in one concert than it does for another. So the first night they might show like The Way You Make Me Feel from what you see on TV is The Way You Make Me Feel from the second concert, but then Billie Jean might be from the first concert. Like, they'll splice them together so that it all, like, they take the best that he's done. But if you like go to those concerts, there are moments where Michael is like kind of out of it. So it's like they really didn't care. Michael had a situation very much similar to what happened to him on June 25th in 2009. That happened to him a little bit after those concerts. I believe it was around 2003. I could be wrong, but I remember reading about this. He he'd been taking propofol, and he was in a situation where he was unresponsive. And I believe Randy Jackson was actually with him at that time. Now, I could be completely wrong. This is something I read up. So if anybody has any information, feel free to let me know. Randy Jackson was watching over him. Randy Jackson had called somebody and was telling them that Michael was unresponsive. He can't get Michael to wake up. And he didn't want to call like 911 or anything like that because he didn't want the media to like get wind of Michael Jackson in this situation. So they were panicking, trying to figure out a way to get Michael back up. And I forgot what exactly they did, but they did bring Michael back. Like, he became responsive again. And that happened, it was before the trial. But since then, Michael has done it consistently. Like, they talked about Arnold Klein, doctor, I believe he was like Michael's dermatologist or whatever, who like took care of his skin and things like that. Well, it was more than that because Arnold Klein claims that he also like did plastic surgery and stuff too. And Michael would go to his office to get propofol, or to get sleep, I guess you would call it. And at least in that situation, he was in a monitored room, like a regular setting that would be qualified to administer stuff like this. It's just crazy because it's like the people that actually cared about Michael really tried hard to help him, but at that point, Michael just had a lot of people around him that tried to keep people out. Like, Michael's family tried to do an intervention and things like that, but the people around Michael wouldn't allow them in a way. And Michael, from what I understand, also was very distant. And it's like, towards the end of his life, he talked about situations where where stuff would be showing up that had his signature on it that he didn't sign. There were people that were coming in and out of his life that he didn't hire, that he didn't know where they came from, people with crazy reputations, things like that. People that he had fired in the past just magically reappearing. Like, whenever people that were close to Michael would try to get in contact with him, the messages would end up disappearing somewhere, so Mike would never even know that these people were looking for him or trying to get in contact with him. It's just like the chain of command was so big, and there were so many people that wanted to be close to Michael, and they didn't care about him. They only cared about getting Michael in shape to do shows and things like that. So anything that could rattle that position, they fought against. Like, I guarantee you, people like Elizabeth Taylor and them were trying to get Michael to get into rehab because Elizabeth was one of the only people that, in the end, was Michael's closest friend. Like, everybody else after the trial had abandoned Michael. Elizabeth Taylor was one of the few people that stuck by him throughout everything, including like the first allegations. She was there to literally feed him food when he was in no shape to actually feed himself. Like, she would take the spoon and like feed him because he was in no shape to take care of himself. Like, I just wish that somebody could have gotten through and had a chance to talk to Michael, because like I said, Michael should be alive right now. And the thing that pisses me off the most, the thing that absolutely makes me like lose faith in humanity, is the fact that Michael was this dude that, and I don't know him personally, so I can't sit here and say like, oh, he's like this, he would have done, I can't say. But based on what I've seen, based on what I've studied, based on what I've heard, everything, that I've yet to run into a story that contradicts this, or at least let's say a credible story that contradicts this. Michael was one of the coolest, most down-to-earth, level-headed people you could have ever met. We just talked about the fact that, like, we just discussed the idea of whether Michael Jackson was the most famous person in the world. He did not act like the most famous person in the world. Like Michael was the type of person that when he walked in the room, he would still introduce himself. Hi, I'm Michael Jackson. Like, yes, we know who you are, Michael. Like, you don't have to do that. Like, most people in his situation would have just like walked in and just like made themselves the center of attention. Like, y'all know who I am. Y'all better ask somebody. Like, if you don't know, you better ask somebody. Michael always like made sure he was very humble. He always put other people first. He would give people the shirts off his back, literally. Like, there are stories of people that have his shirts that are like, oh yeah, Michael had this. I said, that's a nice shirt. He was like, oh, sure, here you go. And he like gave them the shirt. Like those are stories that Michael is told. Not Michael is told, but those are stories that people have told about Michael. Like, he would, if you liked a car that he had, he would buy you a car. If you liked something that he had or something that, you know, you had seen, Michael would give it to you if you were like a close friend. Like, he would just give it to you. Because to him, it's like the feeling of doing that for you outweighs the cost of buying it. And that's the problem, though, because a lot of people saw that and they tried to take advantage. That's what happened with Gavin Arvizo, the kid that made the accusations in 2005 that led to, or the accusations in 2003 that led to the trial in 2005. He, on the stand, and this is in the court transcript, a lot of people that talk about these cases and they say they don't like Michael Jackson because they think he's this, that, and the other. They don't read the court transcripts. On the court transcript, Gavin Arvizo says, like, or let me put it this way. Let me set the scene. Tom Mesereau, Michael Jackson's lawyer, is cross-examining Gavin Arvizo. And Gavin Arvizo has, like, I guess, I don't know if it's the context in which he says things or the way he says it, but Tom notices a lot of, like, hostility coming out of Gavin Arvizo towards Michael Jackson. And Tom Mesereau says he did something that lawyers aren't supposed to do. Whenever you're like cross-examining someone, you don't ask a question unless you yourself know the answer, because you don't know what it opens itself up to if they say something that you weren't expecting. So you don't ask questions that you already know the answer to. But he said this time he went out on a limb and he asked Gavin Arvizo, why are you so mad at Michael? Like, why does it seem like you have this anger towards Michael Jackson? Gavin Arvizo said on the stand, and I think it's the one time he was actually honest when he responded. He looked at Michael and he said, I'm mad at Michael because Michael stopped calling me. Michael started avoiding me. That's why I'm mad, because he didn't have to do that. That's what Gavin Arvizo was pissed off at. Michael Jackson, even before the Living with Michael Jackson special came on that led to the criminal charges, even before that came on, Michael had distanced himself from Gavin Arvizo because Gavin Arvizo already had a reputation of taking advantage of celebrities. The family had already claimed that, the families had already been pushing that he was a cancer patient, and they were reaching out to different celebrities to get fundraisers and, you know, gifts and to meet all these famous people and this, that, and the other. And Michael Jackson had ended up becoming one of the people that his family reached out to, or to be fair, his family reached out to someone that they then reached out to Michael Jackson. So Michael had gotten into contact with him. He met him. And at some point, Chris Tucker had warned Michael, like, hey, be careful about this family because something ain't right. Because Gavin Arvizo and his family had been doing things like they'd make comments about, like, Chris Tucker, like, oh, you have this beautiful car. You don't need this beautiful car. You should give us the car. You don't need this house. You should give us the house. Like, they were making comments that, like, seemed a bit inappropriate for, like, a family that's visiting. Now, you don't just come in and say, hey, you should give me that. You should give me that. You should let me have that. it seemed kind of odd. So he told Michael, like, hey, be careful with this family. And at some point, Michael became aware of the family starting to kind of like make themselves at home at Neverland. So he started to distance himself. They said, or Gavin Arvizo, or I'm going to say Gavin Arvizo specifically said this because I've heard that it's been implied that he said things like this, but he would talk about like, or it's implied that he would talk about Michael, or hearing that Michael isn't at Neverland only to find Michael at like the library or something, like, or the library in Neverland. Like, he would be told that Michael wasn't there, and then he would later find out that, oh, Michael is here, but they just told me that he wasn't. So like Michael was going out of his way to avoid them. I guess he was too nice to tell them to just like get up and leave, but he didn't want them to be around him. So he kept his distance until hopefully, I guess, they would just get the hint like, oh, Michael's never here. Maybe we should move on to the next person or something. But yeah, like Michael went out of his way to try to distance himself from the Arvizo family. And for a while, they went after the Leaving Neverland. Well, after the Living with Michael Jackson documentary came out, they said that Michael never did anything. And when they finally did change their story, they didn't go to a criminal lawyer, they went to a civil lawyer. That was the first not only did they go to a civil lawyer, they got in contact with the exact same civil lawyer that got the settlement for the Jordan Chandler in 1993. Like the exact same one. So it's like, okay, is it about money or not? Because if it was about, trying to hold Michael accountable, you should go to a criminal lawyer. But they didn't even like visit a criminal lawyer. But yeah, it's just like it's just a really crazy story. And like I said, after the trial, Michael, I truly feel, lost the will to live. He did not care anymore. Like, at that point, I think he was probably just like using the painkillers and propofol just to numb the pain. And then once he like got into a situation where he was pushed against the wall, where he would have to either like sell off his catalog or do shows in order to like pay back some of his debts, he ended up agreeing to a 10 date tour at the O2 Arena. And again, like I said earlier about how paperwork was showing up with his signature on it that he wasn't aware of, at some point that changed to 50 dates. Like it just like magically, just overnight, just changed from 10 dates to 50 dates. And that's just not how it was. There was stories about Michael Jackson before he announced the This Is It tour. They said that in the back, like the backstage area, Michael Jackson was kind of out of it. And like one of the managers or something like threw him into a shower and like slapped him or something to try to get him like aware so he can go out there and like make the announcement. So that, if that is true, that lets you know just how, like, just the pieces of shit that was around him at the time. Like, you see that he's out of it. Instead of trying to actually help him, you're thinking, oh no, we got to get him out here so he can make us some money. And then, like I said, it pisses me off. It really pisses me off when I think about it. And I know you're not supposed to, like, as a person on the internet, you're not supposed to give people ammunition. Because if you give the internet ammunition, they will use it. But for me, Michael Jackson is one of those subjects that irritates the hell out of me. Because usually when it comes to people arguing against Michael, they always have arguments that aren't really based on anything. And when you try to point that out, they'll just like accuse you, or they'll just like strawman you, or they'll gaslight you, or they'll just accuse you of being a sympathizer for criminals that do those things. And it just irritates the hell out of you. Or they just come off straight as like trolls, like people that say, aha, I hope Michael Jackson's burning in hell. Like, why would you even say something like that? Even if you don't like them, I couldn't like say something stupid like that, unless they were like just flat out just evil. Like in a situation like that, I would say, oh, them motherfuckers are crazy. Like you can believe what you want, but this is what I believe, and whatever. Like I think that there's not much you can say that can convince me. I think you're just crazy. I think that this is what happened. Like that's what I would say if I truly believed that Michael was guilty. Like, oh well, whatever. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but I think he's guilty. I'm not going to sit here and be like laughing at the idea of and then making jokes about CSA's victims. Like to crack the jokes and things like that. It lets me know that you truly don't care about the victims. It seems more like you're just trying to poke at the supporters of Michael Jackson more so than defending the victims. Because if that were the case, why would you be making jokes at the victim's expense? It doesn't make any sense. But whatever. That's just how I feel about it. Maybe I screwed up letting people know that. that is one of my pet peeves. I said that in an interview before. Somebody asked me about that, and I told them that Michael Jackson was one of my pet peeves. But really, that's a smaller subject. For me, it's more so the fact that people don't research and verify stuff before they assert it as fact. Like, I don't mind you having an opinion. Like, I don't care if someone says they think Michael Jackson is guilty. That's fine. The only person that truly knows what happened is Michael and the person that is making the accusation. That's it. Those are the only people that know what actually happened. So to believe something happened one way or the other, you're free to do that. I have no problem with you believing whatever you want. I would ask that you look into it, but if you choose not to, that's on you as well. You can take it or leave it however you want to. But if you're going to come out and assert that Michael Jackson is this, or these accusers are victims, or this did happen, if you're going to say something like that, then that requires some type of evidence, some type of proof. Otherwise, you're just making an argument based on logical fallacies. And if you're going to do that, then the same thing could be done to you. Like, somebody makes an accusation, instead of and you're telling people, I didn't do it, just like, wait until stuff comes out, you'll see that I'm telling the truth. No, we'll just believe that you did it, and we'll just say that you did it for the rest of your life. Even if evidence later comes out that contradicts the person's accusations against you, we're just going to keep saying that you're guilty because someone made an accusation. That's all that matters. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. Like I said, it all comes based on logical fallacies. Usually it's like, oh, well, where there's smoke, there's fire, which is a logical fallacy in and of itself. Because we know that smoke can happen without fire. So it's like, it's a logical fallacy. It can be other things. Or like they'll just say like, well, he was accused before, and it's like, okay, so that means that this accusation is true. Like it's all based on just usually crap. I mean, I appreciate anybody that's willing to like go and research it, even if you believe that he is guilty. The fact that you would even look into it shows me that you at least care somewhat enough that you are willing to dig into it. But the people that say he's guilty, and anytime someone brings up evidence, they go, nope, I don't care. He's guilty. Whatever. I know he is. And you're just a piece of crap because you support him. That's the stuff that I hate. That's the Twitter world that we live in right now, where everything has to be simplistic. There is no deeper meanings or reason to look harder into something. Everybody has to be in a category. Everybody wants a convenient way to identify everything. So it's like, as soon as something happens, without even looking into it, you'll just throw something in a category immediately, so it makes you feel better about yourself. Like, oh, well, I know where they go. I know where you go. I know where you go. And it's like, no, just do research. You don't need an answer right now. Just look into it and then come to your conclusions after you've built, like after you found the evidence, don't try to like just force an answer into something simply because you want an answer. Like in a situation where, let's say, like let's take the O.J. Simpson case for example. People will say that O.J. Simpson's guilty. Some people will say O.J. Simpson's innocent. But at the end of the day, if you haven't done any research into it, then it doesn't, like, whether or not you believe he did it or didn't do it, it doesn't impact your life in any type of immediate sense. Like you can reserve the right to declare one way or the other something happened, something didn't happen, because you have time to research it for yourself and look into it and then come up with your own conclusion. You don't have, like, you're not forced to come up with an answer right now. You don't need an answer right now. But if you were in a room with O.J. Simpson and you were by yourself and it was just you and him, and in that case, you might want an answer to whether or not you believe he is guilty or not. Like, because in that situation, that answer could have an impact on your life, potentially. In the case of Michael Jackson, it's like, if your child was sleeping over at Michael Jackson's house, in that situation, you might want to know the facts about, or you might want to go like make a decision. Like you need a decision right now whether you believe Michael is guilty or not, and because that could potentially have an impact on you and your child's life. Whereas in a situation right now, nobody is in, like, Michael Jackson's gone. There's no situation where you need an answer to that, because it's not going to matter in the end. Like, nobody's in harm's way. Nobody has the potential to be hurt by anything. You can make your decision whenever you want to. So why not, in the meantime, look into it deeper before you make that decision? Now, if it's a situation where you don't really care that much, like, oh, well, I mean, I'm not that deep into Michael, so I don't really care to look into it, that's fine. And you're free to believe what you want, but at least be open-minded. If somebody presents some evidence, be like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I mean, I still think that, he might have done it, he might not have done it, but I mean, that's an interesting bit of information you just gave me that opened my eyes a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. But to like do this thing where you put your fingers in your ears and go, la 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 la, I think he's guilty, la 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 la, I don't care, la 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 la, like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why are you so stubborn with this? At this point, it comes off more like you want him to be guilty more than you've been convinced that he's guilty. Because if you've been convinced that he's guilty, then you shouldn't be trying to hide or run away from any type of evidence. If you feel that the evidence is so solid and the counter arguments are so ridiculous, then you should be able to just destroy them as soon as someone presents them. On my channel, the reason why I tend to like block or ban people from making direct attacks in the comment section is because if you feel that someone truly is an idiot, if you feel like someone truly is stupid or a dumbass, whatever you want to call them, if you feel their argument is so stupid that you need to that you want to call them that, then you should be able to take that same energy and use it to present your argument against them. Like, if their argument is so bad, then why is it that you can't present an argument that would convince them or make them look stupid in the end? Like, if somebody told me about Michael Jackson and what they believed, I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, well, you're just an idiot because you won't believe what I believe. No, I'm going to show them the evidence. I'm going to show them the court transcripts. I'm going to show them the copies of the settlements. I'm going to show them the testimonies that have come out. I'm going to show them Michael Jackson himself talking about his relationship with kids and things like that. I'm going to show them his family's relationship. I'm going to show them different kids that he's hung out with that have testified about Michael Jackson as a person. I'm going to show them all of this. I'm not going to sit there and make direct insults at them. I'm going to show them the evidence that convinced me. Now, if this doesn't convince them, they're free to believe what they want to believe. But if you're going to continue, if you're going to say, "Oh, he's guilty," okay, then I want to see your evidence. Show me what convinced you. And if you're going to present evidence, have an answer for the critiques. Like if someone just says, "Oh, well, I saw Leaving Neverland." Okay, Leaving Neverland is a documentary where the accusers make their accusations. They're never challenged on them. They're never critiqued on the credibility of what was said, the facts of whether or not it's valid. Like when James Safechuck talks about the train station, or when Wade Robson talks about first being abused when his family went to the Grand Canyon, even though in his 2013 court deposition he talks about being at the Grand Canyon with his family during that trip. So his story just changes. Like if you've only seen Leaving Neverland, you didn't know that in the past he said he was actually at the Grand Canyon. You wouldn't know that James Safechuck had a lawsuit against his family's company before he made his accusations against Michael Jackson, where he owed hundreds of thousands of dollars. You wouldn't have known that Wade Robson had already sued Michael Jackson's estate for over $1 billion, and then later on claimed that it wasn't about the money. Like you wouldn't have known about that type of stuff. You wouldn't have known that Wade Robson was dating Michael Jackson's niece during the time in which he claimed Michael Jackson was trying to groom him and keep him away from girls because he wanted him for himself. Michael Jackson got Brandy and Wade together. The matter of fact, the reason they broke up was because Wade Robson cheated on her with Britney Spears. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like it really doesn't. And like there are so many different things that have happened around that documentary that so many people don't bother to look into, and they only believe the documentary. And like I said, there's so many things that if you did research into it around the documentary, you would see the contradictions. The funny thing is, like I said, the courts have been, or actually, let me say this. The funny thing is, there are two different, or there are more than two, but I'm just going to make it simple and say two. There are two different places in which the accusations are made, in the documentary and in a courtroom. And the funny thing is, people are taking the documentary's stories more validly than what was said in the courtrooms. Wade Robson and James Safechuck have made depositions and have testified in regards to what they believe happened with Michael or whatever. In the courtrooms, they're saying things that they are not saying on Leaving Neverland. So that means there are two different types of stories. Again, there's more because they've changed the story more than twice, but there are two different versions of the stories. Why would you believe the version of the story in the documentary where there are no consequences for potentially lying compared to the courtroom where you can be held in contempt or perjure yourself by lying? Why would you take the documentary's testimonies more validly than, or why would you believe that the documentary's testimony is more valid than the court depositions? If anything, Leaving Neverland should have done for people that believe Michael's guilty is it should have directed them to the actual lawsuits that Wade Robson and James Safechuck made. The fact that you would just take the documentary and be like, oh, that's it. That's all I need. I don't care what else was said. This is what. Okay, but the court in court they're saying something different. Do you care about that? No, I got what I want. Okay, so did you want the actual truth? Because again, they're saying this under oath, whereas over here they're saying this in front of a camera. They're not held in contempt, or they're not. There's no reason for them to not lie. If they want to lie, they're free to do it. Whereas in the courtroom, if they want to lie, they have to weigh that with the consequences of lying in the courtroom. But anyway, I've talked about this enough. This is a video going on for an hour. I didn't expect to talk about it this long, but like I said, when it comes to Michael Jackson, I talk a lot because I've done so much research into these subjects. And like I said, it has changed me as a person. Or how I process things is different because of Michael Jackson. The fact that I'm a skeptic today is because of Michael Jackson. I have done so much studying into things that I for so long believed and have shocked myself because of how it changed my way of processing things. And it's definitely made me a better person, I believe. I believe it made me a better person. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and share. Be sure to go in the comment section and let me know what you all think about these different subjects and whatnot. Again, if you're going to insult or something like that, you're better off leaving it in your head. All I really want is arguments. And, you know, if you have evidence you want to present, fine. But no direct arguments or insults or anything like that. Because like I said, if you feel that your argument is so solid, you should have no problem presenting it. A lot of times Michael Jackson fans will say things that are factually untrue as well. There's like certain stories that would come out and they would believe the side that probably paints Michael in the best light. Like when they talk about Michael never bleaching his skin. Like Michael has bleached his skin, but again, like I said, it's for a reason. He had vitiligo. I believe the stuff that he had was prescribed to him. He would pretty much put it on his arms, his face, and his chest. It would pretty much even out that area so that it would look more uniform. But if you looked at his legs or anything like that, he still had the patches. It's just that by doing this, he didn't have the patches on his face or too much on his hands or his chest or anything like that. So, and I've already shown pictures of Michael Jackson with the vitiligo symptoms. But that's like one of the things that, like when I'm saying the fans, they will go with because they don't. I mean, they mean well, but by passing out misinformation, it takes credibility away from other arguments that you have that actually are factual. Because now people that are listening to it are like, okay, are you telling the truth or not? Because the last one you told wasn't the truth. So now it kind of puts everything else under scrutiny. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of on both sides, even though one side, like I said, I do feel is worse. But anyway, let me know what you all think. I'm going to give you the deuces, and I will see you all in a future video. I am going to have another Michael Jackson video out sometime in the near future because this is around the death anniversary, and I'll probably end up having something around his birthday, just like I did before when I did my Michael Jackson stream, where I was pretty much just playing all video games related to Michael Jackson. That's still on my channel. If you go to if you just type in Michael Jackson, it'll probably pop up on my search thing. But if you go to my playlist, my DaVinci Plays playlist, I have a stream where I play a bunch of games related to Michael Jackson. I play the arcade version of Moonwalker. I play, do I play Sonic 3? I don't know. I play Ready to Rumble Boxing. And I play